What's up guys, and welcome to another YuGiOh Dueling's video. So currently, as you saw, the main box of Gustav Max is finally out, and let's have a look right there. But first off, let's claim our 500 gems free from Konami, and let's proceed to the page right there. New box, okay. Alrighty then, alright, resetting the packs. Alright, so first off, our first UR is of course Gustav Max. Detach a material, inflict 1000 points of damage, and it requires 2 level 10 monsters, and it's a rank 10 with 3000 points of attack and defense. So we've already known the effect, and let's check the second card. Princess Cologne, 2 level 4 monsters, this card exceeds, you can target a box of friends in your graveyard, special summon that target if you control another monster. Your opponent cannot target this card with attack effects or with other card effects. This card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, send to the graveyard, detach a material from this card, spell summon a normal monster from your deck or graveyard in face-up defense position. So normally if you're gonna play something like this, it's better to have more monsters on the field. Whereas on the other hand, if you're gonna play this, you can add normal monsters in your deck, let's say Blue Eyes, Red Eyes, or Dark Magician. With 2200 points of defense, is pretty interesting, and it cannot be destroyed by it cannot be targeted if you control another monster. So this will be interesting to use throughout this entire game, and I can't wait to try it out for myself. Next up is Metaphase Horus. So a tuner and non-tuner monster generic material requirement. If this card is synchro summoned, activate the appropriate effects. Normal monster face-up card is unaffected by other card effects this turn. Effect monster target a card face-up on the field, negate target's effect. Pendulum monster, your opponent chooses one monster they control and give control to you, but they cannot attack this turn. So it permanently obtains the monster as your own if you use a pendulum, so this is gonna be fun. If you're gonna go for something with a normal monster, then the effect would be it will not be it is unaffected by card effect for this particular turn only. Meaning you gotta be careful when it comes on to the next turn, and at least Metaphase Horus does not have the banishing effect, so that's one thing I'm actually finding weird, because normally when you play Metaphys, it requires banishing and whatnot. So I'm actually surprised that it has nothing to do with banishing for this particular synchro monster. Next up is Meteor Black Comet Dragon, a level 7 Red Eyes monster and 1 level 6 Dragon type monster. If this card is fusion summoned, you can send a Red Eyes monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard. If you do, inflict damage to your opponent to a quarter of its original attack. And this card is sent from the monster zone to the graveyard. You can target a normal monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Okay, so aside from the burn damage on the turn itself, and discarding, if you were to actually discard a regular red eyes with only 2400 points of attack, then a quarter of it is pretty much a bit of burn damage, so that's pretty decent. And if this one is sent to graveyard, can Red Eye Spirit can bring out, it's basically a Red Eye Spirit as well for the second effect. So you can basically bring this monster out with Red Eyes Fusion and also continue on so far and so forth. Next up is Malfoy's Metrilium. Okay, so Malfoys are making its way into duelists right now. A Malfoys monster and a Pendulum monster target 2 Malfoys in your graveyard. In the card on the field, shuffle the targets from the graveyard into your deck. If you do this, return the target on the field back to the hand. You can only use this effect of Malfoy's Metrilium once per turn. If this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special summon a Malfoy's Pendulum monster from your graveyard or face up from your extra deck. Okay, the effect itself is fine, I guess. So if you can fusion summon this monster from your hand using polymerization. So if there's a recycle effect at least, it will be much more viable for a turn 2 effect, unless your opponent negates that, of course. So otherwise, that is a pretty okay card, and it's not an upon summoning effect, so you can actually activate this every turn. Next up is Heavy Freight Train Demicrane. Next, and also following up is Malfoy's Gold Driver. It's a pendulum at level 4 with scale of 1. Once per turn, you can target a face-up card you control, destroy it, and set a Malfoy's from your deck. And it's a regular monster, it's also there's no extra effects right there. Box of Friends. So this card is actually to use in combo with Princess Cologne. So with the effects, this card is destroyed and sent to graveyard. Special summon from your deck 2 normal monsters with different names, whose attack and defense or defense is 0. One face-up defense position, in face-up defense position, you can only use this effect once per turn. Monsters special summoned by the effect cannot be used as synchro material. They are destroyed during your next end phase. So essentially, this is a great card to set in defense position, but you'll be special summoning normal monsters instead. So if you're gonna play a deck full of normal monsters with different names, you can go for something that has 0 attack or 0 defense. So as long as they're regular monsters and with that low points of attack or defense, it's a pretty good chance to go for. Next up is a Red Eyes Fang with Chain. Target a Red Eyes monster you control, equip this to it. Make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. You can send this equipped to the graveyard. Target the effect monster on the field, equip that target to the monster this card was equipped. And if a monster is equipped by this effect, its attack becomes equal to original attack of that equipped monster. Okay, so there's an attack gain right there, so that's pretty decent. Next up is Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. We already obtained this in the previous selection box. Next up is Full Malfoy's Alcahast. And also Necros of Trishula, Demise, Supreme King of Armageddon, Supreme Express Bullet Train, Flying Pegasus, Railroad Stampede, Fiendish Rhino Warrior is an SR. Okay, Fiend monsters you control except this particular monster cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. With this sent to the graveyard, you can send a Fiend type from your deck to the graveyard instead, and you can use this effect once per turn. Alright, so if you're gonna play this card, it's better to have a swarm of Fiend type monsters that are currently on the field, with this monster providing battle protection from it, so that's a pretty interesting one. And next up is Malfoy's Stellene. It's a normal monster with a pendulum effect. Manju of 10,000 hand. When this is normal summon, add a ritual or a spell from your deck to your hand. And also Soul Taker. Target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Destroy that target and your opponent gains 1,000 life points. Next up, Metaphase Ascension. Discard a Metaphys, draw a card. Then you can banish a Metaphys from your deck. If this card is banished, you can add a Metaphys card from your deck to your hand, except Metaphase Ascension. You can only use this once per turn, and only once that turn. Okay, that's a pretty interesting. So that means you cannot actually activate this card, then double cycle on it to gain the second effect. Okay, I see what you're doing, Konami. And our last SR, our first R card is number 72, Dreadnought Draenoid. Okay, so I was actually expecting this card to be an SR, to be honest, but with it being an R, this means we can cheat out Gustav Max during our end phase, meaning you don't necessarily have to play multiple level 10 monsters. Instead, you can just play a lot of level 4 monsters, then during the end phase, just Xyz into a Gustav Max. Thanks to that, it's treated an Xyz summon as well, so the following turn you can use the Gustav Max burn effect, damage to burn 10,000 points of burn damage, and it's a once per turn effect. Next up, all the other red cards that are pretty much the basic supports for the current UR and SR cards right there. And without further ado, let's open up some packs, shall we? Despot, Metaphys Executor, Despot Tree, Synchro Control, Spiritual Whisper, and Despot number 3. Rafflesia Seduction, and Super Express Bullet Train. Okay, that's a pretty good card to have. Bellstorm, and Metaphys Nephthys. Zarguin, Psychic Sword, Malfoy's Volflame. Scanner, Psychic Sword, and Rune Supreme Queen of Oblivion. Gambler of Legend, Mysterious Guard, and Metaphys. Puppet Plant, and Flying Pegasus Railroad Stampede. Okay, so that's a pretty interesting pull right there. To be honest, the cards that actually have value to you as a duelist, if you're gonna play like a very competitive style, the ones that I would recommend are being your Black Comet Dragon. Even though the first effect allows you to mill Red Eyes to the graveyard, then if you were to use the effect of actually milling Red Eyes Archfiend, and then use Red Spirit bring out on the field, then activate the second effect of turning it into a Raigeki card, then that's a pretty decent card overall. Whereas the different other cards for Anna Kaboom set, such as Demicrane and also number 2 is Dreadnought Draenoid, along with Super Bullet Train. Those are interesting cards to have if you're gonna play an Anna Kaboom deck. But overall, the ones that's appealing that I think that most duelists would want to try to have is Red Eyes Fangs to Chain, Box of Friends, Princess Cologne, Red Eyes Flare Mail Dragon, along with let's see, Flying Pegasus Railroad Stampede. That's also good. And that's pretty much it, along with especially Manju of 1,000 Hands. But if you're going to compare it with the other cards that are currently available here, they are not necessarily bad. But if you're not gonna play any of the archetypes that are recommended here, then it is better for you to avoid this entire box overall. But if you're gonna play at least 2 to 3 of the archetypes and you're interested in trying it out, then you can go for this box overall. You can build a Malfoy deck, you can play more Red Eye support into it with Black Comet Dragon, along with Red Eye's Flare Mail Dragon, along with Gustav Max, that's for Anna Kaboom. And so far, I think I'm gonna try out Metalfoes and also try to maximize my own Red Eyes, especially for Black Comet Dragon. Whereas for the other cards, they do not seem as interesting as I thought they would be. I mean, Metaphase Horus itself is an interesting generic card to have. Although it shares the name of Metaphys, it doesn't actually have the banishing effect that is normally commonly known inside the Metaphys archetype. Henceforth, you can pick this up and play in any of the generic decks based on what kind of deck you're gonna run, whether it's normal monster, effect monster, or pendulum. If you're gonna run it in a pendulum deck, this is fine as well, because the time you synchro this monster using a pendulum, you get to take control of your opponent's monster. So that's one way you can actually play around with it. Whereas for Meteor Black Comet Dragon is pretty good as well. But for the Metaphase support, there are only 2, which are Metaphase Horus and also Metaphase Ascension. Aside from that, most of them have either their own individual archetype support or have nothing to do with other archetypes at all. Like for example, Soul Taker. Target a face-up monster your opponent controls, destroy the target, your opponent gains 1,000 life points. So that basically you get to destroy a card your opponent controls and giving them life points, which is fine if you're gonna go for an OTK that is actually more than the amount of life points they have. So it's interesting to try this card out if you're gonna play something that has a lot of burn damage or a lot of monster higher attack points, or if your opponent were to control something that has a very high points of attack and you cannot destroy it, then Soul Taker you can go for it as well, since the only drawback is that your opponent gains life points, which means the game might be prolonged just a bit longer. Whereas for most of you who are playing ritual decks, especially like the Demise Game of Armageddon archetype, Cyber Angels, or even like or any other archetypes that require ritual monsters. So Manju is a great card for you to grab, and the rest of them are pretty lackluster, especially for Fiendish Rhino Warrior. Even though the effect itself is pretty decent, it will take some time for you to actually bring out that much Fiend monster so that your opponent cannot target them for attacks, and you gotta provide a lot of protection for this guy right there before you can actually let him stay on the field. Anyways, aside from that, guys, that's basically it for this entire main box. Even though the main box itself has a pretty few decent cards overall, as I mentioned, if you are not gonna play any of the archetypes being provided there, you can skip this box, for example, and go for and keep your gems for something else that comes up, like maybe selection box, or maybe go and farm one of the current main boxes or mini box that are already available and has cards that you actually want. But if you're interested in trying out Malfoy or maybe getting more of Anna Kaboom's key cards, then you can try out this entire box and see what cards you can get. And overall, if you're just gonna get for a specific card, like for Red Eyes, I'm just gonna say it right there. It's not gonna be a great gamble if you're gonna do that, because it's gonna take up a lot of gems for you to actually get it. And there are also situations where you actually spend about 5,000 gems and you didn't even get realized Black Comet Dragon. So if you want to try your luck, maybe set a budget or amount of how much you want to spend on it. And if you manage to obtain it, then you can skip the box and leave it as it is. Anyways guys, I think I've rambled on long enough. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll see you in the next upcoming episode where Anna Kaboom unleashes episode 4 and also episode 5. So until then, stay safe but keep dueling. Goodbye, good night, stay safe, and most important of all, keep dueling. Goodbye.